Welcome, weary wanderer, to the mysterious town of Gravity Falls, Oregon, where the impossible becomes possible and every shadow holds a secret waiting to be discovered. Tonight, we'll explore the deepest mysteries and most compelling theories about this enigmatic place, from the ancient origins of its supernatural nature to the cosmic implications of its strangest phenomena. This is a journey through theories both plausible and fantastic, connections both obvious and hidden, mysteries both solved and eternal. So settle into your blankets, let your mind drift like morning mist through the pine forests, and prepare to lose yourself in the endless enigmas of Gravity Falls. Close your eyes when you're ready, and let's begin. In the beginning, long before European settlers ever dreamed of crossing the vast American continent, long before the name Gravity Falls was spoken in any language known to recorded history, there existed in the dense forests of what would one day become Oregon, a place where the natural laws that govern our everyday reality seemed to bend and flex like saplings in a cosmic wind. The indigenous peoples who first walked these ancient trails, whose ancestors had witnessed the rise and fall of ice ages and the slow dance of continental drift, understood something that modern civilization would spend centuries trying to rationalize away. They knew that certain places on the earth pulsed with energies that defied easy explanation, that some locations served as thin spots in the fabric of reality itself, where other worlds pressed close against our own, like whispered secrets waiting to be heard. These first inhabitants of the region developed elaborate rituals and protective ceremonies around what they recognized as a sacred and dangerous convergence point. Their oral traditions, passed down through generations with the careful precision that only life or death knowledge receives, spoke of a place where the spirits of other realms could step freely into the world of flesh and bone, where time itself seemed to flow differently, and where the very trees and stones hummed with an otherworldly awareness. The theory that these ancient peoples served as the first guardians of Gravity Falls finds support in archaeological evidence that mainstream science has struggled to interpret. Stone circles arranged in patterns that seem to mirror constellations visible only from other dimensional vantages. Petroglyphs depicting creatures that match no known species from any geological era, and ceremonial sites positioned with mathematical precision at points where modern electromagnetic surveys detect the strongest anomalous readings. These indigenous guardians understood what modern theorists are only beginning to grasp, that the supernatural phenomena of Gravity Falls are not random occurrences, but part of a vast, interconnected web of cosmic forces that require careful tending and respectful acknowledgement. Their shamans and spiritual leaders developed techniques for communicating with the entities that dwelled in the spaces between worlds, establishing protocols for peaceful coexistence that kept both humans and otherworldly beings safe from the dangers that arise when different forms of existence collide without preparation or understanding. The rituals themselves, reconstructed from fragmentary evidence and comparative mythology studies, appear to have involved complex ceremonies timed to astronomical events, the burning of specific plants that grew only in areas of high supernatural activity, and the creation of protective symbols that bear striking resemblances to markings found throughout the journals of Stanford Pines centuries later. These ancient practitioners seem to understand that the boundaries between dimensions were not fixed walls, but permeable membranes that could be strengthened or weakened through focused intention and ritual action. As European colonization began to push westward across the continent, carrying with it a worldview that left little room for phenomena that could not be categorized and controlled, the indigenous guardians of Gravity Falls found themselves facing an impossible choice. They could attempt to warn the newcomers about the dangers that lurked in the forests they so eagerly sought to claim, risking disbelief and violence from people who would see their warnings as primitive superstition. Or they could withdraw their protective presence and allow the consequences to unfold naturally. The evidence suggests that they chose a middle path, encoding their essential knowledge into stories and symbols that could survive the coming cultural disruption while maintaining a reduced but continuous presence in the region. This would explain why certain families among the local Native American communities retained unusually detailed knowledge of Gravity Falls' supernatural properties well into the modern era, and why their warnings about specific locations and seasonal phenomena proved so remarkably accurate to the researchers who were wise enough to listen. The theory of natural weirdness magnetism proposes that Gravity Falls occupies a unique position in the Earth's magnetic field configuration, a point where multiple ley lines intersect to create what geologists might describe as a geological pressure valve, and what physicists might recognize as a quantum uncertainty amplification zone. This intersection of terrestrial magnetic forces with cosmic radiation patterns creates a region where the normal rules of probability and causation operate under significantly different parameters than those found in more magnetically stable locations. The geological surveys conducted in the region reveal a subsurface composition that defies easy categorization. Mineral deposits that should not exist together, according to established geological principles, lie side by side in formations that suggest they were deposited by processes that operated outside normal space-time constraints. Crystal formations display internal structures that seem to change depending on the angle and spectrum of light used to examine them, while magnetic anomalies create navigation challenges that have persisted despite multiple attempts at recalibration and mapping. The dimensional weakness hypothesis extends this natural phenomenon into theoretical physics, suggesting that Gravity Falls sits at the intersection of multiple dimensional boundaries, creating a location where the normal barriers between parallel universes exist in a state of constant flux. This theoretical framework would explain why supernatural creatures appear more frequently in the area. They are not truly invading our reality, but simply following natural dimensional currents that flow more freely through this cosmic confluence point. The positioning of Gravity Falls at this particular latitude and longitude may not be coincidental, but rather the result of cosmic forces that operate on scales far greater than individual planets or solar systems. Ancient astronomical calculations suggest that the location represents a point where multiple cosmic cycles intersect, creating periodic windows of increased dimensional permeability that correspond with the 17-year patterns of supernatural activity that careful observers have documented throughout the town's recorded history. The convergence theory proposes that Gravity Falls functions as a focal point for cosmic energies that originate from sources scattered throughout the galaxy and beyond. These energy streams, following paths determined by the fundamental geometry of space-time itself, meet and interact in the dense forests of Oregon, creating a natural amplification chamber where the subtle influences that normally operate below the threshold of perception become magnified to the point where they can manifest as visible, tangible phenomena. This cosmic convergence would explain why the supernatural entities that appear in Gravity Falls often seem to originate from vastly different dimensional contexts. They are all following the same cosmic currents that lead to this singular point of intersection, like streams flowing down a mountainside to converge in a single valley. Beings from across the multiversal spectrum find themselves drawn to Gravity Falls by forces that operate according to principles that transcend individual choice or intention. The time before recorded history holds its own mysteries that may predate even the indigenous settlements by millennia or perhaps eons. Fossilized remains discovered in the deeper caves and geological formations around Gravity Falls include specimens that challenge conventional understanding of evolutionary development and temporal progression. These fossils appear to show creatures that combine characteristics from multiple geological eras, as if time itself flowed differently in this region, allowing species from vastly separated epochs to coexist in ways that should have been impossible. The temporal distortion theory suggests that Gravity Falls has always existed in a state of chronological flux, where past, present, and future exist in closer proximity than normal spatial-temporal relationships would allow. This would explain not only the anomalous fossil record, but also the recurring patterns of supernatural activity that seem to echo across different time periods with remarkable consistency. Archaeological excavations have uncovered artifacts whose age cannot be determined using conventional dating methods, as if they exist partially outside the normal flow of time. Stone tools displaying impossible levels of precision and complexity lie in geological strata that suggest an age of millions of years, while organic materials that should have decayed eons ago remain preserved in states that seem to fluctuate between perfect preservation and advanced decomposition, depending on environmental conditions that researchers have yet to identify. The prehistoric anomalous activity theory proposes that the supernatural phenomena currently observed in Gravity Falls represent the continuation of patterns that have persisted since the earliest days of the region's geological quays. Formation, ancient creatures whose descendants still roam the forests today, may have originally been drawn to the area by the same cosmic forces that continue to attract otherworldly entities, creating a continuous chain of supernatural inhabitation that stretches back through geological deep time. These primordial beings, existing in harmony with the dimensional fluctuations that characterize the region, may have evolved specifically to take advantage of the unique properties that Gravity Falls offers. Their ability to phase between dimensions, manipulate probability fields, and exist in states that blur the boundaries between physical and metaphysical reality could represent evolutionary adaptations to an environment where normal biological constraints operate under significantly altered parameters. The fossil evidence suggests that these ancient creatures possessed capabilities that modern supernatural entities can only approximate, as if the dimensional boundaries were once even more permeable than they are today, allowing for forms of existence that pushed the limits of what reality could accommodate. Their gradual adaptation to more restrictive dimensional conditions may explain why contemporary supernatural phenomena, while still remarkable by normal standards, appear less dramatic than the evidence suggests was once common in the pre-human era of Gravity Falls history. The implications of this prehistoric supernatural ecosystem extend far beyond academic curiosity. If Gravity Falls has served as a dimensional crossroads for geological ages, then the accumulated effects of this prolonged exposure to cosmic forces may have fundamentally altered not just the local environment, but the basic structure of reality in the region. The town and its surroundings may represent not just an anomalous location, but an entirely different category of existence, a place where the universe operates according to principles that diverge from those that govern the rest of our reality. This deep history of supernatural activity creates a foundation upon which all subsequent mysteries build, establishing Gravity Falls not as a recent aberration in the natural order, but as a persistent exception to rules that may themselves be more flexible than conventional science has yet recognized. The ancient origins of the town's weirdness suggest that the phenomena observed by modern researchers represent not an invasion of the supernatural into the natural world, but a glimpse into the true nature of reality itself. unfiltered by the assumptions and limitations that characterize more cosmically isolated locations. As we drift deeper into these ancient mysteries, we begin to understand that Gravity Falls' story does not begin with human settlement or even human awareness, but stretches back through eons of cosmic evolution to a time when the boundaries between dimensions were still taking shape, and the rules that would govern reality were still being written by forces whose true nature remains beyond our current understanding. When the first European explorers began pushing westward across the North American continent in the early 1800s, driven by dreams of manifest destiny and visions of untapped wealth hidden in the vast wilderness beyond the mapped territories, they carried with them assumptions about the natural world that would prove tragically inadequate when confronted with the realities of what would eventually become known as Gravity Falls, Oregon. Among these early adventurers was a man whose name would become synonymous with the founding of the town itself, though the true circumstances of his discovery would be buried beneath layers of deliberate obfuscation and carefully constructed mythology that persists to this day. Nathaniel Northwest, according to the official histories that bear his family's stamp of approval, was a visionary pioneer who recognized the potential of the pristine wilderness and established the first permanent settlement through determination, ingenuity, and the kind of rugged individualism that characterized the American frontier experience. Yet careful examination of the fragmentary records that escaped the Northwest family's systematic revision of historical documentation reveals a story far more complex and disturbing than the sanitized version taught in local schools and celebrated in the town's annual Founders' Day festivities. The theory of what Nathaniel Northwest truly discovered when he first entered the dense forests that would become Gravity Falls suggests an encounter not with pristine wilderness, but with phenomena that challenged the very foundations of his understanding of reality itself. The earliest accounts, preserved in private letters and journal entries that remained hidden in family archives for over a century, describe Northwest's initial expedition into the region as a journey that began with conventional surveying objectives but quickly transformed into something that bordered on cosmic horror. His surveying team, equipped with the finest instruments available in the early 19th century, found that their compass needles spun wildly in certain areas, that their chronometers seemed to run fast or slow depending on their precise location, and that the very ground beneath their feet occasionally displayed properties that violated everything they understood about solid matter and gravitational forces. Northwest's personal journal, portions of which were leaked by a disgruntled family archivist in the 1970s before being quickly suppressed through legal action, contains descriptions of encounters that seem to belong more to the realm of supernatural fiction than historical documentation. He wrote of trees that appeared to whisper in languages that predated human speech, of clearings where the shadows fell in directions that bore no relationship to the position of the sun, and of caves that seemed to extend far deeper into the earth than geological principles could explain. The theory that Northwest made contact with otherworldly entities during his initial exploration gains credence from analysis of his behavioral changes following his return from the wilderness. Previously known as a pragmatic businessman with little interest in anything that could not be quantified and monetized, Northwest began displaying an obsessive fascination with subjects that his contemporaries considered esoteric at best and dangerously unhinged at worst. He acquired extensive libraries dealing with occult philosophy, dimensional theory, and what would now be recognized as early theoretical physics, spending enormous sums to obtain manuscripts and texts that most rational individuals of his era would have dismissed as charlatanism or madness. The transformation in Northwest's approach to the settlement of his newly claimed territory provides additional evidence for the supernatural encounter theory. Rather than pursuing the conventional development patterns that characterized other frontier towns, with their emphasis on agricultural exploitation and resource extraction. Northwest established gravity falls according to principles that seem to prioritize containment and observation over profit maximization. The original town layout, still visible in the oldest sections of the community, follows geometric patterns that bear striking similarities to protective symbols found in various esoteric traditions, as if the entire settlement were designed as a massive ritual circle intended to control or channel supernatural forces. The deals that Northwest negotiated with otherworldly entities, if such transactions indeed occurred, appear to have involved exchanges that went far beyond simple territorial agreements. The theory suggests that Northwest offered something far more valuable than gold or land to the beings he encountered in the deep forests. He may have provided them with access to human consciousness itself, creating a partnership that would allow otherworldly intelligences to study and influence human behavior through carefully controlled exposure to supernatural phenomena. This arrangement would explain the peculiar characteristics that distinguished Gravity Falls from other frontier settlements from its earliest days. While neighboring communities struggled with the typical challenges of frontier life, hostile wildlife, harsh weather, resource scarcity, and isolation, Gravity Falls seemed to exist in a protective bubble where the normal dangers of wilderness living were replaced by different, more exotic hazards that, while certainly dangerous, also brought with them opportunities for advancement and discovery that no conventional frontier town could offer. The Northwest family's rapid accumulation of wealth and political influence, achieved through methods that remain mysterious even by the standards of 19th century business practices, supports the theory that their success derived from sources that operated outside normal economic principles. Their early investments consistently anticipated market trends by margins that suggest access to information that went beyond conventional business intelligence, while their political connections extended into circles of power that should have been entirely beyond the reach of a family with such recent frontier origins. The establishment of the town itself followed patterns that reveal a deep understanding of the region's supernatural properties that Northwest could not have acquired through conventional exploration and surveying. The location of key buildings, the routing of early roads, and the positioning of what would become the town square all demonstrate knowledge of the area's dimensional weak points and energy flow patterns that would not be formally documented by researchers until the work of Stanford Pines, nearly a century and a half later. The cover-up of supernatural encounters that characterized the early years of Gravity Falls development was not a simple matter of protecting commercial interests or maintaining social stability. The theory suggests that Northwest and his collaborators understood that widespread knowledge of the town's true nature would attract attention from sources that could fundamentally disrupt the delicate balance they had established with the otherworldly forces that inhabited the region. The supernatural entities they had encountered may have insisted on secrecy as part of their agreement, recognizing that excessive human attention could interfere with whatever long-term objectives they hoped to achieve through their partnership with mortal intermediaries. This need for secrecy manifested in the systematic suppression of accounts that described the town's more unusual characteristics. Visitors who reported supernatural encounters found their testimonies dismissed as frontier tall tales or attributed to the disorienting effects of wilderness living. Local residents who spoke too openly about the phenomena they witnessed often found themselves subjected to social and economic pressures that encouraged them to revise their accounts or relocate to more conventional communities. The early logging industry that provided Gravity Falls with its initial economic foundation served purposes that extended far beyond simple resource extraction and wealth generation. The theory of logging camps as supernatural monitoring stations finds support in the unusual locations chosen for timber operations, many of which targeted forests that contained relatively few commercially valuable trees, while focusing intensive activity on areas where supernatural phenomena were known to occur with unusual frequency. The logging operations themselves appear to have been designed as much for observation and documentation as for lumber production. Workers were required to maintain detailed daily logs that recorded not only their productivity and the characteristics of the timber they harvested, but also any unusual phenomena they encountered during their work. These reports, preserved in company archives that remain sealed for over a century, contain descriptions of encounters with creatures that matched no known species, discoveries of structures that appeared to be of non-human origin, and observations of natural phenomena that violated established principles of physics and biology. The missing logger reports that occasionally surface in estate sales and historical document auctions reveal a pattern of covered-up incidents that suggests the early lumber industry served as an informal supernatural monitoring network. Workers who disappeared during their shifts were often written off as victims of conventional wilderness hazards, despite evidence that pointed toward encounters with entities or forces that operated outside the realm of normal natural dangers. Equipment failures that followed patterns inconsistent with mechanical wear or environmental damage were attributed to operator error or poor maintenance, even when the actual evidence suggested interference from sources that possessed capabilities far beyond anything found in the natural world. The connection between deforestation patterns and supernatural activity levels provides additional evidence for the theory that the logging industry served functions beyond simple resource exploitation. Areas that were subjected to intensive logging operations often showed temporary decreases in supernatural phenomena, as if the removal of old-growth forests somehow disrupted the environmental conditions that allowed otherworldly entities to maintain a stable presence in the physical world. However, these areas also demonstrated dramatically increased supernatural activity during reforestation periods, suggesting that the logging operations may have been intended to create cycles of supernatural dormancy and awakening that could be predicted and controlled by those who understood the underlying patterns. The economic benefits that the logging industry provided to Gravity Falls' early development were significant, but they pale in comparison to the strategic advantages that the operations offered to those who understood their true purpose. The network of logging camps and timber operations created a surveillance system that could monitor supernatural activity across vast areas of wilderness, while maintaining the appearance of conventional commercial enterprise. Workers who proved capable of handling encounters with unusual phenomena could be quietly recruited for more sensitive operations, while those who displayed excessive curiosity or inability to maintain discretion could be reassigned to more conventional locations. The accidents and incidents that plagued the logging operations throughout their history follow patterns that suggest they were not random occurrences, but rather the inevitable consequences of industrial activity that operated in areas where normal safety protocols were inadequate for the actual hazards that workers faced. Equipment that functioned perfectly in conventional forest environments suffered inexplicable failures when deployed in areas of high supernatural activity, while safety procedures that should have prevented serious injuries proved useless against threats that operated outside the physical laws that standard industrial safety practices were designed to address. The gradual decline of the logging industry in the Gravity Falls region coincided with the arrival of more sophisticated approaches to supernatural monitoring and containment that rendered the crude surveillance methods of timber operations obsolete. As the town's supernatural phenomena began attracting the attention of researchers and government agencies with access to more advanced technology and theoretical frameworks, the need for the kind of widespread but imprecise monitoring that logging operations provided diminished accordingly. The transition from an economy based on resource extraction to one that emphasized research and tourism created new opportunities for those who understood how to profit from the town's supernatural characteristics while maintaining the essential secrecy that protected both human residents and otherworldly entities from the disruptive effects of excessive external attention. The Northwest family's successful navigation of this economic transformation demonstrates their continued access to information and resources that operated outside conventional business channels, suggesting that their original agreements with supernatural entities remained in effect throughout the changing circumstances of the town's development. The legacy of the founding era continues to influence Gravity Falls' development patterns to the present day, with property ownership, business licensing, and civic leadership showing remarkable continuity with the power structures established during Nathaniel Northwest's initial settlement of the region. The families and organizations that benefited from the original supernatural arrangements have maintained their influence through successive generations, creating a hidden aristocracy that bases its authority not on conventional wealth or political power, but on knowledge of and access to the otherworldly forces that continue to shape the town's destiny. The true founding of Gravity Falls, therefore, represents not merely the establishment of another frontier settlement, but the creation of a unique experiment in human supernatural cooperation that has continued to evolve and develop over the course of nearly 2 centuries. The theories surrounding this founding suggest that the town exists not as an accidental anomaly, but as a deliberately constructed interface between different levels of reality, designed to serve purposes that extend far beyond the immediate needs and ambitions of its human inhabitants. When Stanford Pines first arrived in the small town of Gravity Falls in the late 1970s, carrying with him academic credentials from one of the nation's most prestigious universities and a research grant that would allow him to pursue studies that his colleagues at West Coast Tech had politely but firmly discouraged, he believed himself to be embarking on a conventional scientific expedition that would document and categorize the unusual wildlife and geological formations that had attracted scattered reports from previous visitors to the region. The reality that confronted him in those dense Oregon forests would prove to be so far beyond the boundaries of conventional scientific understanding that it would fundamentally reshape not only his approach to research, but his entire conception of what constituted reality itself. The theories surrounding Ford's research and the portal conspiracy suggest that his arrival in Gravity Falls was not the random choice of an eccentric academic, but rather the culmination of a selection process that had been operating for decades, identifying and drawing toward the town individuals whose unique combination of intellectual capabilities and psychological characteristics made them suitable candidates for contact with intelligences that operated outside the normal parameters of human experience. The 6-fingered hand symbol that would become so central to Ford's research and ultimately to the supernatural crisis that would engulf the town represents far more than a simple genetic anomaly that marked him as different from his fellow humans. The theories surrounding this symbol's true multidimensional significance suggest that it serves as a kind of cosmic identifier, a physical manifestation of Ford's compatibility with forces and entities that exist across multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. The mathematical properties of the 6-fingered configuration, when analyzed according to principles that extend beyond conventional geometry into the realm of dimensional topology, reveal patterns that correspond to fundamental constants that govern the interaction between different levels of reality. The hexagonal symmetry that naturally emerges from six-point configurations mirrors structures found throughout the universe, from the crystalline lattices that form the basis of solid matter to the orbital patterns of celestial bodies and the energy distribution networks that theoretical physicists have proposed. As the underlying framework of space-time itself, this symbolic significance extends far beyond mere mathematical curiosity when examined in the context of ancient prophecies and mystical traditions that predate recorded history. Archaeological evidence from civilizations scattered across the globe reveals recurring references to six-fingered beings who served as intermediaries between mortal humans and cosmic forces that transcended normal human understanding. These figures appear in Mesopotamian cylinder seals, Egyptian hieroglyphic texts, Mayan astronomical calendars, and Celtic stone carvings, with a frequency that suggests their importance went far beyond regional mythological traditions. The theory that Ford's physical characteristics marked him as a predetermined candidate for contact with supernatural entities gains additional support from analysis of the timing and circumstances of his arrival in Gravity Falls. The research grant that funded his expedition came from sources that, upon closer examination, proved to have connections to organizations and individuals with documented histories of interest in paranormal phenomena and dimensional research. The academic recommendations that supported his application came from professors whose own research had touched upon subjects that mainstream science preferred to ignore or dismiss as speculative philosophy rather than legitimate inquiry. The selection of Ford by Bill Cipher represents not a random encounter between human scientist and otherworldly entity, but rather the culmination of a recruitment process that may have been operating across multiple timelines and dimensional planes. The theory suggests that Bill had been observing Ford's development from childhood, noting his intellectual capabilities, his social isolation, his hunger for recognition, and most importantly, his willingness to pursue knowledge, even when such pursuit led him into territories that conventional wisdom deemed dangerous or forbidden. The psychological profile that made Ford suitable for Bill's purposes extended beyond simple intellectual capacity to include character traits that would make him susceptible to manipulation by an entity that understood how to exploit the deepest needs and fears of human consciousness. Ford's lifelong experience of feeling like an outsider, marked by physical differences that set him apart from his peers, created a vulnerability to approaches from beings who claimed to recognize his unique potential and offer him the acceptance and validation that human society had largely denied him. The government knowledge theory proposes that federal agencies had been monitoring Gravity Falls and similar anomalous locations for far longer than publicly acknowledged, maintaining surveillance networks that tracked supernatural activity while developing theoretical frameworks that could accommodate phenomena that official science refused to recognize. The timing of Ford's arrival in the town, coinciding with a period of increased supernatural activity that government sensors had detected but could not publicly acknowledge, suggests coordination between academic research initiatives and classified government programs that operated outside normal oversight mechanisms. The evidence for federal awareness of Gravity Falls' supernatural properties can be traced back through decades of seemingly unrelated government activities that, when examined collectively, reveal patterns of knowledge and preparation that extend far beyond what random bureaucratic coincidence could explain. Land acquisitions by various government agencies in the region followed patterns that corresponded precisely with areas of highest supernatural activity, while military exercises and training programs conducted in the Pacific Northwest consistently avoided areas where civilian researchers later documented intense paranormal phenomena. The theory that Ford was part of a larger supernatural monitoring program gains credence from analysis of the funding sources and administrative structures that supported his research. The agencies that provided his grants and the institutions that endorsed his work maintained connections to defense contractors and intelligence organizations whose classified projects included research into subjects that overlapped significantly with the phenomena Ford was investigating in Gravity Falls. These connections suggest that his ostensibly independent academic research was actually part of a coordinated effort to develop scientific understanding of supernatural phenomena while maintaining plausible deniability about government involvement in such controversial subjects. The infrastructure necessary to support and monitor Ford's research required resources and capabilities that far exceeded what a single academic institution could provide, even one with the prestigious reputation and extensive funding of West Coast tech. The communication equipment, data processing capabilities, and security protocols that Ford's work required suggest access to technology and support networks that were typically available only to researchers working on classified government projects. The theory proposes that Ford's research represented a hybrid model that combined academic freedom with government resources, allowing for innovative approaches to supernatural investigation while maintaining the secrecy that both scientific and national security considerations required. The cover-up infrastructure that protected Ford's research from public scrutiny operated according to principles that had been developed and refined through decades of government experience in managing information about sensitive topics. The patterns of media suppression, academic career manipulation, and selective information release that characterized the handling of Ford's discoveries mirror techniques that had been employed to manage public knowledge about other classified research programs throughout the Cold War period. The connections to other government supernatural projects reveal a broader pattern of federal interest in paranormal phenomena that extended far beyond the specific circumstances of Gravity Falls. Research facilities in Nevada, underground installations in Colorado, and naval experiments conducted in the Pacific all showed evidence of investigation into subjects that paralleled Ford's work, suggesting the existence of a coordinated national program that studied supernatural phenomena from multiple perspectives, while maintaining strict compartmentalization between different research initiatives. The true scope of Bill Cipher's long-term manipulation represents perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the entire Portal conspiracy, suggesting that the entity's influence extended far beyond its direct interactions with Ford to encompass a systematic program of historical manipulation that spanned centuries and involved the careful orchestration of events across multiple dimensional planes. The 1,000-year manipulation theory proposes that Bill had been working to create the conditions necessary for his eventual escape from his native dimension, since long before human civilization had developed the technological and scientific frameworks that would make such an escape possible. The evidence for Bill's historical influence can be traced through patterns of supernatural activity and technological development that show remarkable consistency across different time periods and geographical locations. Major advances in mathematics, physics, and engineering often coincided with reported increases in paranormal phenomena in the regions where such advances occurred, suggesting that Bill and entities like him had been subtly guiding human intellectual development toward goals that served their own long-term objectives rather than human welfare. The manipulation of historical events in Gravity Falls specifically reveals a level of planning and patience that defies normal human comprehension of strategic thinking. The establishment of the town itself, the selection and guidance of key families like the Northwests, the timing of technological developments that would eventually make dimensional research possible, and the cultivation of social and political conditions that would allow such research to proceed without excessive outside interference, all suggest coordination by an intelligence that operated according to timescales measured in centuries rather than years or decades. Bill's influence on the development of scientific instruments and theoretical frameworks that would eventually enable Ford's portal research demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of how human knowledge develops over time, and Ford's portal research, how seemingly independent discoveries can be orchestrated to serve predetermined objectives. The mathematical principles that Ford employed in his dimensional calculations had been developing through the work of researchers across multiple generations, many of whom reported inspirational dreams or sudden insights that provided them with crucial breakthroughs at precisely the moments when such advances would contribute most effectively to the eventual realization of Bill's goals. The true purpose of the portal extended far beyond simple dimensional travel or even the conquest of individual worlds to encompass a fundamental restructuring of the relationship between different levels of reality. The theory suggests that Bill's ultimate objective was not merely to escape his dying dimension, but to establish himself as a permanent bridge between dimensional planes, creating a state of perpetual chaos that would allow him to feed indefinitely on the energy released by the collision and destruction of different realities. The portal itself represents not just a doorway between worlds, but a mechanism for breaking down the fundamental barriers that keep different dimensions stable and separate from one another. The activation of such a device would not merely allow travel between predetermined destinations, but would create a cascade effect that would progressively weaken dimensional boundaries throughout the local cosmic region, eventually leading to a state of multiversal collapse that would reduce all existence to the kind of primal chaos from which Bill derived his power and sustenance. The theories about Bill's ultimate endgame across multiple realities suggest that the Gravity Falls portal was intended as merely the first step in a campaign that would eventually encompass entire galactic clusters, with each successful dimensional breach making subsequent invasions easier to accomplish and more difficult for the inhabitants of targeted realities to resist. The entity's power would grow exponentially with each successful conquest, eventually reaching levels that would allow him to challenge the fundamental forces that maintain the structure of existence itself. The mathematical models that describe such a scenario reveal consequences that extend far beyond the destruction of individual worlds or even entire universes, to encompass the potential unraveling of the basic principles that make organized existence possible. The energy patterns that such multiversal chaos would generate would create feedback loops that could propagate across dimensional boundaries that are normally considered absolutely impermeable, potentially affecting realities that exist in entirely different cosmic frameworks from our own. The psychological warfare that Bill employed against Ford represents a sophisticated understanding of human consciousness that suggests extensive study and experimentation with mortal minds across extended periods of time. The entity's ability to identify and exploit Ford's deepest insecurities and desires demonstrates knowledge of human psychology that could only have been acquired through sustained observation and manipulation of numerous subjects over the course of many generations. The gradual escalation of Bill's influence over Ford's research and personal life followed patterns that mirror classical techniques of psychological manipulation, while incorporating elements that operated outside normal human experience entirely. The entity's ability to influence Ford's dreams, alter his perceptions of reality, and gradually erode his capacity for independent judgment suggests access to levels of consciousness that conventional psychology has yet to recognize or understand. The isolation that Bill systematically created around Ford served not merely to eliminate potential sources of resistance to the entity's influence, but also to create the kind of psychological dependency that would make Ford increasingly vulnerable to manipulation as the Portal project progressed. By encouraging Ford to distance himself from human relationships and normal social support systems, Bill ensured that the scientist would have no reliable frame of reference outside of their interaction, making it progressively more difficult for Ford to recognize the true nature of what he was being manipulated into accomplishing. The final stages of Bill's manipulation involved the systematic undermining of Ford's capacity for rational decision-making through techniques that combined psychological pressure with direct supernatural intervention in his cognitive processes. The entity's ability to influence Ford's perception of time, memory, and causation created a state of mental fragmentation that made it increasingly difficult for the scientist to maintain coherent awareness of his actual situation and the true consequences of his actions. The Portal conspiracy, when examined in its full scope and implications, reveals not merely a supernatural threat to a small town in Oregon, but a cosmic crisis that could have fundamentally altered the nature of existence itself. The theories surrounding Ford's research suggest that humanity came far closer to universal catastrophe than most people realize, and that the eventual resolution of the crisis required not just heroic individual actions, but the intervention of forces and principles that operate at levels of reality that normal human consciousness can barely comprehend. The legacy of these events continues to influence the development of supernatural phenomena in Gravity Falls and beyond, creating ripple effects that will likely continue to manifest for generations to come as the universe slowly recovers from the near-catastrophic disruption that Bill's plans represented. The knowledge and experience gained through this crisis may prove essential for humanity's ability to recognize and respond to similar threats in the future, assuming that the species survives long enough to develop the wisdom necessary to use such knowledge responsibly. The Pines family tree stretches back through generations of individuals whose lives seem to have been touched by forces that operate outside the boundaries of normal human experience, creating a genealogical pattern that suggests their connection to supernatural phenomena extends far beyond the specific circumstances that brought Dipper and Mabel to Gravity Falls during that fateful summer of 2012. The theory of the Pines bloodline's special properties proposes that certain genetic configurations create a natural resonance with the dimensional frequencies that characterize locations of high supernatural activity, making members of this family inherently more sensitive to paranormal phenomena, while simultaneously more vulnerable to the dangers such sensitivity entails. The genetic predisposition to supernatural encounters that appears to run through the Pines lineage manifests in ways that extend beyond simple sensitivity to otherworldly phenomena to encompass a fundamental alteration in how members of this family interact with the basic forces that govern reality itself. Historical records of Pines family members, scattered across multiple generations and geographical locations, reveal consistent patterns of involvement in events that conventional analysis would classify as highly improbable coincidences, but which, when examined collectively, suggest the operation of forces that actively seek out individuals with specific genetic and psychological characteristics. The earliest documented Pines ancestor, whose life showed clear evidence of supernatural involvement, was Elias Pines, a merchant sailor from the colonial period whose ship's log, preserved in the maritime archives of the Massachusetts Historical Society, contains descriptions of encounters with phenomena that his contemporaries dismissed as the products of extended isolation and harsh sea conditions, but which modern researchers recognize as consistent with documented supernatural maritime incidents. Elias wrote of compass needles that pointed toward locations that did not correspond to magnetic north, of stars that appeared in configurations that matched no known celestial patterns, and of sea creatures that displayed intelligence and capabilities far beyond those of any species known to conventional marine biology. The pattern of supernatural encounters continued through subsequent generations, with Pine's family members consistently finding themselves in situations where they served as witnesses to, participants in, or catalysts for events that challenged the accepted understanding of natural law. During the westward expansion period, Jeremiah Pines, a frontier surveyor, submitted reports to territorial governments that described geographical features and natural phenomena that other surveyors working in the same regions failed to observe or document, suggesting that his perceptions were somehow attuned to aspects of the landscape that remained invisible to individuals who lacked his particular genetic heritage. The Civil War era brought with it accounts from Marcus Pines, a Union Army telegraph operator whose messages, preserved in military communication archives, contain references to battlefield communications that appeared to originate from sources that could not be identified through conventional military intelligence networks. His reports describe receiving coded transmissions that provided accurate intelligence about enemy troop movements and strategic planning, despite originating from locations where no Union forces were known to be operating, suggesting access to information networks that transcended normal, spatial, and temporal limitations. The Industrial Revolution of the late 19th and early 20th centuries saw members of the Pines family gravitating toward occupations and locations that brought them into contact with the cutting edge of technological development, often in contexts where their work involved phenomena that pushed the boundaries of contemporary scientific understanding. Thomas Pines worked as an electrical engineer for Nikola Tesla's laboratory, where his personal notebooks, discovered during a family estate sale in the 1980s, contain sketches and calculations that describe electromagnetic effects that would not be formally recognized by mainstream physics until decades later. The theory that the Pines family serves as natural anomaly magnets gains additional support from analysis of the geographical distribution of family members across different historical periods. Rather than following typical migration patterns driven by economic opportunity or social connections, Pines family members consistently established themselves in locations that would later be recognized as sites of significant supernatural activity. These settlement patterns suggest an unconscious attraction to places where dimensional boundaries are weakened or where cosmic forces create conditions conducive to paranormal phenomena. The connection to other supernatural encountering families reveals a broader genetic network that may have been shaped by evolutionary pressures that operated outside the normal parameters of natural selection. Genealogical research has identified marriage connections between the Pines lineage and at least 17 other family lines that show similar patterns of supernatural involvement across multiple generations, suggesting either conscious selection for compatible genetic traits or the operation of forces that actively encouraged breeding between individuals whose hereditary characteristics made them suitable for specific cosmic purposes. The significance of twins in Gravity Falls lore, and in the broader context of supernatural phenomena generally, extends far beyond simple narrative convenience to encompass fundamental principles of cosmic balance and dimensional stability that operate at the deepest levels of reality's structure. The mathematical relationship between paired consciousness and the harmonic frequencies that govern interdimensional communication creates resonance patterns that can amplify certain types of supernatural phenomena while providing natural protection against others, making twin pairs particularly valuable as interfaces between different levels of existence. The psychological dynamics that characterize twin relationships create cognitive configurations that are uniquely suited for processing and responding to information that originates from sources outside normal human experience. The shared developmental history, synchronized neural patterns, and complementary personality traits that typically develop between twins create a form of distributed consciousness that can handle cognitive loads and information processing tasks that would overwhelm individual minds attempting to function independently. The specific pairing of Dipper and Mabel represents an almost perfect example of the complementary characteristics that make twin consciousness so effective for supernatural interaction. Dipper's analytical nature and obsession with uncovering hidden truths provides the investigative framework necessary for identifying and understanding paranormal phenomena, while Mabel's intuitive approach and emotional openness creates the psychological flexibility required for accepting and adapting to experiences that transcend rational explanation. The criminal network that Stanford's brother, Stanley, developed during his years of exile from conventional society appears to have involved connections and activities that extended far beyond simple financial fraud and confidence. Schemes to encompass a shadow economy that dealt in commodities, and services that operated outside the boundaries of legal commerce, and, in many cases, outside the boundaries of normal reality itself. The theory of supernatural trafficking through Stan's criminal contacts suggests that his network provided access to artifacts, information, and entities that conventional law enforcement agencies were neither equipped to detect nor capable of understanding. The geographical scope of Stan's criminal activities, spanning multiple states and extending into international waters, created opportunities for encounters with phenomena that were distributed across a much wider area than the concentrated supernatural activity of Gravity Falls itself. His travels brought him into contact with individuals and organizations whose operations required them to navigate the complex intersection between legal and illegal activities on one hand and natural and supernatural phenomena on the other, creating a network of knowledge and resources that would prove invaluable when the portal crisis reached its climax. The specific skills that Stan developed during his years as a career criminal, particularly his expertise in deception, misdirection, and the manipulation of official records, proved to be remarkably well suited for the challenges involved in concealing and managing supernatural phenomena. His ability to create false identities, forge official documents, and maintain complex cover stories provided the foundation for the elaborate deception that allowed him to operate the Mystery Shack, while simultaneously working to repair the portal and rescue his brother from the dimensional exile that Bill Cipher had imposed upon him. The connections that Stan maintained with other members of his criminal network included individuals whose own activities had brought them into contact with supernatural phenomena in various forms, creating an informal intelligence network that could provide information about anomalous events and unusual activities across a much broader geographical area than any single individual could monitor independently. These connections proved invaluable for tracking the spread of supernatural phenomena beyond Gravity Falls and for identifying potential threats or opportunities that might affect the stability of the town's cosmic situation. The evolution of Stan's approach to criminal activity following his acquisition of the Mystery Shack reveals a transformation from purely self-interested fraud to a more complex operation that served multiple purposes simultaneously. While the tourist trap aspects of his business provided the financial resources and social cover necessary for his portal research, the establishment also functioned as a monitoring station that could track supernatural activity throughout the region while providing a legitimate reason for the presence of the scientific equipment and research materials that his work required. The theory that Stan's criminal contacts possessed knowledge of other anomalous locations gained support from analysis of his purchasing records and supply chain management, which reveal acquisition of materials and equipment from sources that specialized in serving clients whose requirements could not be met through conventional commercial channels. The suppliers who provided Stan with rare earth elements, specialized electronics, and custom manufactured components. Operated businesses that catered to a clientele whose projects required resources that mainstream manufacturers and distributors were unwilling or unable to provide. The Dipper and Mabel destiny theory proposes that the specific timing and circumstances of their arrival in Gravity Falls were not the result of random family circumstances, but rather the culmination of cosmic forces that had been working for generations to bring these particular individuals to this specific location at precisely the moment when their unique combination of capabilities would be most needed for the resolution of the crisis that Bill Cipher's machinations had created. The predetermined nature of their summer adventure suggests that the events they experienced were not simply responses to supernatural phenomena they happened to encounter, but rather the fulfillment of a cosmic script that had been written long before their birth. The consistency with which they found themselves in positions where their specific personality traits and complementary skills proved essential for resolving supernatural crises implies coordination by forces that possessed both detailed knowledge of their psychological makeup and the ability to influence the timing and sequence of events across extended periods of time. The role that Dipper and Mabel played in the cosmic balance extends beyond their immediate contributions to the resolution of the portal crisis to encompass their function as representatives of human consciousness in its interaction with forces that operate at scales and according to principles that transcend individual human experience. Their ability to maintain their essential humanity while successfully navigating encounters with entities and phenomena that had driven previous researchers to madness or despair suggests that they possessed not just courage, intelligence, but a fundamental stability of character that made them suitable ambassadors for their species in negotiations with cosmic forces. The psychological resilience that both twins demonstrated throughout their supernatural encounters reveals characteristics that appear to have been shaped by their entire developmental history, rather than simply emerging in response to crisis situations. Their capacity for maintaining emotional equilibrium while processing information that challenged their basic understanding of reality, their ability to form functional relationships with supernatural entities while retaining their own moral and ethical frameworks, and their skill in developing practical solutions to problems that had no precedent in human experience, all suggest preparation by forces that understood both the challenges they would face and the capabilities they would need to meet those challenges successfully. The twin connection that Dipper and Mabel shared provided them with advantages that extended far beyond mutual emotional support to encompass a form of distributed consciousness that proved essential for processing and responding to the complex multidimensional challenges that characterized their supernatural encounters. Their ability to function as a unified problem-solving system while maintaining their individual personalities and perspectives created a cognitive configuration that was uniquely suited for bridging the gap between human understanding and cosmic reality. The complementary nature of their psychological profiles created a partnership that could address both the analytical and intuitive aspects of supernatural problem-solving simultaneously, allowing them to develop comprehensive approaches to challenges that had defeated previous investigators who had attempted to rely on single-perspective analysis. Dipper's systematic approach to mystery investigation provided the logical framework necessary for understanding supernatural phenomena, while Mabel's emotional intelligence and creative thinking supplied the innovative perspectives required for developing effective responses to situations that had no precedent in conventional experience. The long-term implications of their involvement in the Gravity Falls supernatural crisis extend beyond the immediate resolution of the portal threat to encompass their role as bridges between normal human society and the broader cosmic community that their adventures reveal to exist beyond the boundaries of everyday awareness. Their experiences created knowledge and capabilities that may prove essential for humanity's ability to navigate future encounters with forces that operate at scales and according to principles that transcend current scientific understanding. The genetic and psychological characteristics that made Dipper and Mabel suitable for their cosmic role suggest that their lineage may continue to produce individuals who possess similar capabilities, creating a hereditary line of cosmic intermediaries who can serve as interfaces between human consciousness and the broader universe of beings and forces that exist beyond the immediate boundaries of terrestrial experience. The theory proposes that their adventure in Gravity Falls was not a unique historical event, but rather an example of the kind of cosmic interaction that will become increasingly necessary as humanity's technological and spiritual development brings it into contact with forms of existence that currently remain beyond the reach of mainstream awareness. The broader implications of the Pines family connection to supernatural phenomena suggest that their bloodline represents one example of a genetic heritage that has been shaped by evolutionary pressures and cosmic influences that operate outside the normal parameters of biological development. Their story in Gravity Falls may represent not just a family adventure, but a glimpse into the future of human evolution as the species develops the capabilities necessary for functioning as a participant in cosmic civilizations that span multiple dimensions and operate according to principles that transcend the physical laws that currently define the boundaries of human understanding. The Society of the Blind Eye represents one of the most disturbing chapters in Gravity Falls' hidden history, a secret organization whose activities extended far beyond the simple memory erasure operations that were eventually discovered by Dipper, Mabel, and their companions during their investigation into the town's supernatural mysteries. The true scope of the Society's memory manipulation program suggests a systematic campaign of psychological warfare against the civilian population that may have affected thousands of individuals over the course of several decades, creating gaps in collective memory that fundamentally altered the social and cultural development of the entire community. The founding of the Society in the late 1970s coincided with a period of dramatically increased supernatural activity in the Gravity Falls region, suggesting that the organization was established not as a spontaneous response to isolated paranormal encounters, but rather as part of a coordinated effort to manage public awareness of phenomena that certain interested parties preferred to keep hidden from mainstream attention. The timing of the Society's establishment, occurring within months of Stanford Pine's arrival in the town and the beginning of his intensive research into dimensional anomalies, implies coordination between the memory erasure program and other efforts to control information about the region's supernatural characteristics. The membership of the Society included individuals from every level of Gravity Falls' social and economic hierarchy, creating a network of conspirators who could influence public perception and official records from positions of authority within local government, law enforcement, education, and business communities. The participation of respected community leaders in memory erasure operations suggests that the Society's activities were not the work of isolated fanatics, but rather represented the implementation of policies that had been developed and approved by individuals who understood the broader implications of allowing unrestricted public access to information about supernatural phenomena. The selection criteria for Society membership appear to have prioritized individuals whose psychological profiles indicated both the capacity for maintaining absolute secrecy under extreme pressure and the willingness to participate in activities that violated fundamental principles of human autonomy and dignity in service of what they believed to be a greater good. The psychological evaluations that preceded acceptance into the organization, preserved in fragmentary documents discovered in abandoned society safe houses, reveal screening processes that would have been sophisticated by the standards of professional intelligence agencies, suggesting access to expertise and resources that extended far beyond what a local secret society should have been able to acquire independently. The true scope of memory erasure operations conducted by the society becomes apparent when examining the statistical patterns of reported supernatural encounters in Gravity Falls compared to other locations with similar levels of anomalous beacons activity. The dramatic underreporting of paranormal phenomena in the town, despite objective evidence for supernatural activity levels that should have generated thousands of witness accounts, suggests systematic suppression of testimony through memory modification techniques that were applied far more extensively than the Society's official records acknowledged. The technological capabilities that the Society employed in their memory erasure operations required access to equipment and expertise that should have been available only to major research institutions or government agencies with substantial budgets and security clearances. The memory ray devices that served as the organization's primary tools represented sophisticated applications of principles from neuroscience, electronics, and theoretical physics that exceeded the technological capabilities that small-town conspirators should have been able to develop or acquire through conventional channels. The theory that the Society was manipulated by external forces gains credence from analysis of the funding sources and supply chains that supported their operations throughout their decades of activity. The financial resources required to maintain their equipment, facilities, and membership compensation far exceeded what could have been generated through the legitimate business activities of their known members, while the specialized components and materials that their technology required could only have been obtained from suppliers who catered to clients with very unusual requirements. The connections to government mind control experiments that characterize the Cold War era suggest that the Society may have served as a testing ground for techniques and technologies that were being developed by federal agencies for use in national security applications. The timing of the Society's establishment coincided with the height of projects like MK-Ultra and other classified programs that investigated the potential for psychological manipulation and memory modification, while the sophistication of their equipment and methods mirrors approaches that were being explored by researchers working under government contracts during the same period. The documentation of Society activities reveals patterns of experimentation that suggest their memory erasure. The operations served purposes beyond simple concealment of supernatural phenomena to encompass broader research into the nature, human consciousness, and the possibilities for large-scale social engineering through selective memory modification. The detailed records that Society members maintained of their subjects' responses to different erasure techniques, the systematic variation in methods applied to different demographic groups, and the long-term monitoring of affected individuals all indicate that the organization was collecting data that would have been valuable for researchers studying the fundamental mechanisms of human memory and perception. Old Man McGucket's role in the Society extends far beyond his public persona as the town eccentric whose mind had been damaged by excessive exposure to his own memory erasure technology. The theory of McGucket's hidden knowledge proposes that his apparent madness served as a protective cover that allowed him to preserve crucial information about both the society's activities and the broader supernatural conspiracy that the memory erasure program was designed to conceal. The careful analysis of McGuckett's seemingly random ramblings and bizarre inventions reveals patterns of encoded information that suggest his damaged consciousness retained far more coherent awareness than his public behavior indicated. The mechanical contraptions that he constructed during his years of apparent insanity incorporate design principles and technological solutions that demonstrate sophisticated understanding of dimensional physics, consciousness manipulation, and the interface between biological and artificial intelligence systems. The timing and content of McGuckett's memory wipes suggest that he was subjected to partial rather than complete erasure procedures, allowing him to retain fragmentary recollections that could be assembled into coherent knowledge by anyone who understood the encoding methods he employed to protect crucial information from total loss. The theory proposes that McGuckett deliberately structured his memory erasure sessions to preserve essential knowledge while creating the appearance of complete mental breakdown, using his reputation for madness as camouflage for activities that would have attracted dangerous attention if their true purpose had been recognized. The hidden messages in McGuckett's inventions and public statements reveal a systematic effort to document and preserve information about both the society's memory erasure operations and the broader supernatural phenomena that those operations were designed to conceal. His mechanical creations incorporate components and design features that serve as physical storage devices for information that was too dangerous to preserve in conventional written or electronic formats, while his apparently random verbal outbursts follow linguistic patterns that encode detailed technical specifications for advanced technology and theoretical frameworks for understanding multidimensional physics. The relationship between McGuckett's apparent mental deterioration and his actual psychological state suggests that the memory erasure technology affected different individuals in dramatically different ways, with some subjects experiencing complete loss of targeted memories, while others developed complex psychological adaptations that allowed them to preserve essential information despite repeated exposure to erasure procedures. McGuckett's unique response to memory modification may have resulted from his exceptional intelligence and his deep understanding of the neurological mechanisms that the erasure technology targeted, enabling him to develop conscious and unconscious strategies for protecting crucial knowledge from complete elimination. The memory gaps that characterize Gravity Falls' official historical record represent one of the most significant pieces of evidence for the true scope of the society's operations, revealing systematic erasure of events and information that would have fundamentally altered public understanding of the town's nature and development if such knowledge had been allowed to remain in collective consciousness. The comparison between documentary evidence that escaped the society's attention and the official historical accounts that were shaped by their interventions reveals discrepancies that suggest entire decades of supernatural activity were deliberately removed from public awareness. The major events that were systematically erased from collective memory include supernatural incidents that would have attracted national media attention and government investigation if their occurrence had been widely known and remembered. The documentation of these events exists in fragmentary form in private collections, personal diaries, and official records that were overlooked by society screening operations, but the absence of public memory regarding such significant occurrences demonstrates the effectiveness of large-scale memory modification when applied with sufficient resources and coordination. The theory that entire decades of supernatural activity were forgotten gains support from demographic analysis of Gravity Falls population patterns, which reveal unexplained fluctuations in migration, birth rates, and economic development that correspond to periods when official records show minimal supernatural activity, despite objective evidence for intense paranormal phenomena. The social and cultural development of the town shows discontinuities that suggest major formative experiences were removed from collective memory, creating a community whose identity and traditions were fundamentally shaped by events that no one was permitted to remember. The effect of systematic memory erasure on the town's development extends beyond simple concealment of supernatural events to encompass the broader psychological and social consequences of living in a community where shared reality was constantly being revised and edited by outside forces. The residents of Gravity Falls developed cultural characteristics and behavioral patterns that reflect unconscious adaptation to an environment where personal memories and community history could not be trusted as reliable sources of information about past events or future expectations. The technology employed by the Society for Memory Modification required theoretical understanding and practical capabilities that exceeded what should have been available to local conspirators working without external support, suggesting either access to classified government research or contact with sources of knowledge that operated outside conventional scientific and technological development channels. The sophistication of their memory ray devices, the precision with which they could target specific memories while leaving other cognitive functions intact, and the effectiveness of their techniques for ensuring that modified memories remained stable over extended periods, all indicate capabilities that approached or exceeded what mainstream neuroscience considered theoretically possible during the period when the society was most active. The long-term psychological effects of repeated memory modification on society members themselves reveal patterns of cognitive deterioration and personality fragmentation that suggest the memory erasure technology created cumulative damage that affected not only the targeted memories but also the broader integrity of consciousness and personal identity. The Society's own records document increasing instability and unpredictability among their membership as their operations continued over multiple decades, while the personal accounts of former members who escaped the organization describe experiences of dissociation and identity confusion that persisted long after their direct involvement in memory erasure activities had ended. The infrastructure required to support the Society's operations included not only the technological capabilities for memory modification, but also the organizational systems necessary for identifying targets, coordinating erasure operations, managing cover stories, and maintaining security over extended periods, while dealing with a membership that was itself subject to periodic memory modification to ensure continued loyalty and discretion. The complexity of these logistical requirements suggests that the Society operated as part of a larger network that provided administrative support, technical maintenance, and strategic guidance that individual local conspirators could not have developed or sustained independently. The selection of targets for memory erasure followed patterns that suggest the Society operated according to criteria and priorities that were established by authorities who possessed comprehensive knowledge of supernatural phenomena throughout the region and detailed understanding of how public awareness of such phenomena might affect broader national security and scientific research objectives. The consistency with which the Society identified and neutralized potential sources of information leakage, their ability to predict which individuals were most likely to share their supernatural experiences with others, and their systematic approach to preventing the formation of organized civilian research groups all indicate access to intelligence gathering and analysis capabilities that extended far beyond the resources of a local secret organization. The dissolution of the society following the discovery of their operations by Dipper, Mabel, and their companions marked the end of one phase of memory manipulation in Gravity Falls, but did not eliminate the broader infrastructure and authority relationships that had made their activities possible in the first place. The ease with which the society had operated for decades without detection by law enforcement or government oversight, the sophisticated nature of their technology and techniques, and the extensive network of collaborators and supporters that their operations required, all suggest that their memory erasure program represented only one component of a much larger system for managing public awareness of supernatural phenomena. The legacy of the Society's activities continues to influence the social and psychological dynamics of Gravity Falls long after their official dissolution, with community members struggling to reconstruct personal and collective memories that were systematically altered over the course of multiple decades. The process of recovering suppressed memories and rebuilding accurate understanding of the town's history has proven to be far more complex and traumatic than simply reversing the effects of memory erasure technology. As individuals and families work to distinguish between authentic recollections and false memories that were implanted to cover gaps left by the removal of original experiences. The broader implications of the Society's activities extend beyond their immediate impact on Gravity Falls to encompass questions about the nature of memory, identity, and social reality that have profound consequences for understanding how communities and cultures develop and maintain their cohesion across time. The systematic modification of collective memory represents a form of psychological warfare that attacks the fundamental foundations upon which human society depends for its stability and continuity, creating populations that exist in a state of perpetual uncertainty about the reliability of their own experiences and the trustworthiness of their shared cultural narratives. Weirdmageddon represents far more than a localized supernatural crisis that threatened the small town of Gravity Falls during those 3 terrifying days in the summer of 2012. The multiversal impact theory proposes that Bill Cipher's brief period of unrestricted access to our reality created ripple effects that propagated across dimensional boundaries, with consequences that extended throughout the cosmic neighborhood, affecting parallel universes and alternate timelines in ways that the inhabitants of those realities may never fully understand or recognize. The fundamental nature of dimensional barriers suggests that they exist not as impermeable walls but rather as dynamic equilibrium systems that maintain stability through the careful balance of forces operating across multiple levels of reality simultaneously. When Bill succeeded in tearing through the barrier between his native nightmare realm and our physical universe, the resulting disruption created waves of instability that propagated outward from Gravity Falls, like expanding circles on a cosmic pond, carrying with them alterations in the basic parameters that govern how different dimensions relate to one another. The theoretical physics that describe interdimensional relationships indicate that any significant breach in the barrier system creates cascading effects that can destabilize the entire local cluster of parallel realities, leading to what cosmologists have termed dimensional drift, where alternate versions of our universe begin to experience subtle but cumulative changes in their physical laws, historical development patterns, and the basic constants that determine how matter and energy interact within their respective cosmic frameworks. Evidence for these multiversal impacts can be found in the astronomical anomalies that were detected by observatories around the world during the 3-day period when Weirdmageddon was actively occurring. Though mainstream science has yet to recognize the connection between these observations and the events that were transpiring in a small Oregon town. Radio telescopes recorded inexplicable interference patterns that seemed to originate from sources that existed outside normal space-time coordinates, while gravitational wave detectors registered disturbances that followed mathematical patterns inconsistent with any known astrophysical phenomena. The ripple effects across multiple realities manifested in ways that would have been invisible to casual observation, but which created permanent alterations in the fundamental structure of how those alternate universes operated. In some parallel versions of Earth, the changes may have affected the development of scientific knowledge, leading researchers in those realities to discover principles and technologies at different rates than had previously been predetermined by their cosmic development trajectories. Other alternate timelines may have experienced subtle shifts in historical events, where key decisions made by important figures were influenced by dimensional resonances that originated from the chaos Bill had unleashed in our reality. The connections to other supernatural events worldwide during the Weirdmageddon period suggest that Bill's activities served as a catalyst that triggered dormant anomalous phenomena in locations that had previously maintained stable, supernatural activity levels. Reports from paranormal researchers in various countries describe unprecedented increases in supernatural encounters, dimensional breaches, and reality distortions that occurred simultaneously with the events in Gravity Falls, implying that the entire global, supernatural ecosystem had been disrupted by the dimensional breach that Bill's presence represented. The true nature of Bill Cipher extends far beyond the conventional understanding of him as a malevolent interdimensional entity seeking to escape the destruction of his home dimension. The theory that Bill represents entropy itself proposes that his consciousness embodies one of the fundamental forces that govern the universe's development toward maximum chaos and eventual heat death, making his activities not simply the aggressive expansion of one being's power, but rather the manifestation of cosmic principles that operate at scales that dwarf individual stellar systems or galactic clusters. The mathematical descriptions of entropy in theoretical physics suggest that the universe's inexorable progression toward thermal equilibrium and maximum disorder represents not merely a statistical tendency, but rather the expression of conscious intention by entities whose existence transcends the normal boundaries of space, time, and individual identity. Bill's behavior patterns, his apparent immunity to conventional physical laws, and his ability to manipulate the basic structures of reality all align with characteristics that would be expected from a being whose essential nature derives from the fundamental forces that drive cosmic evolution toward increasing randomness and energy dissipation. His connection to the heat death of the universe becomes apparent when examining the long-term consequences that would have resulted from his successful transformation of our reality into an extension of his nightmare realm. The chaotic conditions that Bill sought to establish would have eliminated the organized energy gradients that make complex structures like stars, planets, and living organisms possible, accelerating the universe's progression toward the state of maximum entropy that represents the final stage of cosmic evolution. According to current thermodynamic models, the geometric nature of Bill's existence provides additional evidence for the entropy theory, as geometric beings appear to represent forms of consciousness that exist at the intersection between mathematical abstraction and physical reality, allowing them to manipulate the basic parameters that determine how energy and matter organize themselves into complex structures. The dangerous nature of such entities to ordinary reality stems from their ability to alter the fundamental constants and relationships that maintain the delicate balance necessary for the existence of organized complexity throughout the universe. The reasons why geometric beings pose such threats to conventional reality become clear when considering the mathematical principles that govern dimensional stability and the formation of complex structures within space-time. Geometric consciousness appears to operate according to rules that prioritize mathematical elegance and logical consistency over the messy compromises and statistical approximations that characterize the physical processes through which planets, ecosystems, and civilizations develop and maintain their existence. Bill's specific geometric form, the triangle, represents one of the most fundamental mathematical relationships in dimensional physics, embodying principles of structural stability and energy distribution that operate at every level of reality, from subatomic particle interactions to the large-scale architecture of galactic clusters. His ability to manipulate triangular relationships within space-time gave him unprecedented power over the basic geometric foundations upon which physical reality constructs itself, making him capable of redesigning the universe according to mathematical principles that would eliminate the irregularities and inefficiencies that make life and consciousness possible. The zodiac wheel that served as the key to Bill's defeat represents far more than a simple protective symbol or magical ritual designed by Stanford Pines and his research collaborators. The universal significance theory proposes that the wheel embodies mathematical and cosmological principles that operate throughout the galaxy and beyond, representing a fundamental pattern that describes how conscious beings can work together to maintain the stability of reality against forces that seek to dissolve the organized complexity upon which civilization depends. The hidden meanings behind each symbol incorporated into the zodiac wheel correspond to archetypal patterns that appear in the mythological and spiritual traditions of conscious species throughout the local galactic cluster, suggesting that the wheel represents not human-specific symbolism but rather universal principles that describe how different types of consciousness can combine their capabilities to address threats that exceed what any individual, single species could handle independently. The theory that the wheel represents cosmic balance finds support in the mathematical relationships between the different symbols and their positioning relative to one another, which mirror the harmonic frequencies that theoretical physicists have identified as the basic resonance patterns that maintain dimensional stability across multiple universe clusters. The specific individuals who were chosen to represent each symbol appear to have been selected not randomly, but according to psychological and spiritual characteristics that aligned with cosmic principles operating at scales far beyond individual personality traits or cultural background. The connections to other mythological protection systems reveal patterns that suggest the zodiac wheel represents one local manifestation of protective principles that have been discovered and implemented by conscious civilizations throughout cosmic history. Whenever they have encountered threats similar to the chaos that Bill's cipher represented, archaeological evidence from ancient Earth civilizations shows remarkably similar symbolic patterns in protective rituals and architectural designs, while radio astronomy has detected signal patterns from other stellar systems that incorporate mathematical relationships consistent with zodiac wheel principles. The permanent changes that Weirdmageddon inflicted upon reality extend far beyond the obvious physical alterations that were visible to casual observers during and immediately after Bill's defeat. The theory proposes that reality itself was fundamentally altered by the dimensional breach and the subsequent restoration process, creating subtle but persistent modifications in how the universe operates that will continue to manifest consequences for decades or possibly centuries to come. The evidence for lasting effects becomes apparent through careful analysis of supernatural activity patterns in gravity falls and surrounding regions following the conclusion of Weirdmageddon. which show statistical distributions and phenomena characteristics that differ significantly from pre-crisis baseline measurements. The dimensional barriers that were damaged during Bill's rampage appear to have healed in configurations that allow for increased permeability between our reality and adjacent dimensional planes, making supernatural encounters more frequent and more intense throughout the Pacific Northwest region. The theory that the town is forever changed gains additional support from measurements of electromagnetic field fluctuations, gravitational anomalies, and quantum uncertainty patterns that continue to show elevated readings months and years after the crisis officially ended. These persistent alterations suggest that the fabric of space-time itself was permanently modified by the forces that were unleashed during Weirdmageddon, creating a new baseline condition for reality in the Gravity Falls area that incorporates characteristics borrowed from other dimensional planes. The hidden consequences that may not manifest for years or decades include potential alterations in the fundamental constants that govern how physical laws operate in the affected region, leading to changes in how matter and energy interact that could affect everything from biological development patterns to technological performance characteristics. Children born in Gravity Falls after Weirdmageddon may develop capabilities and characteristics that differ from normal human parameters, while technological devices may begin to exhibit performance anomalies that reflect the modified physical conditions under which they must operate. The long-term implications of these reality modifications extend beyond the immediate Gravity Falls area to encompass broader questions about the stability and resilience of the universe itself when subjected to the kind of dimensional trauma that Bill's activities represented. The precedent, established by Weirdmageddon, suggests that reality's protective mechanisms, while ultimately effective, require tremendous effort and sacrifice to activate, and may leave permanent vulnerabilities that could be exploited by future entities with similar capabilities and intentions. The psychological impact of Weirdmageddon on the residents of Gravity Falls represents another category of lasting change that may prove to be as significant as the physical alterations to reality itself. The shared trauma of experiencing 3 days during which the basic laws of nature were suspended and their familiar environment was transformed into a nightmarish playground for otherworldly entities has created a community-wide psychological condition that combines elements of post-traumatic stress disorder with existential uncertainty about the nature of reality and their place within it. The collective memory of Weirdmageddon, unlike the systematic erasure of supernatural experiences that had characterized previous decades of the town's history, remains vivid and undeniable in the consciousness of everyone who witnessed Bill's reign of terror. This shared awareness of having survived a cosmic-scale crisis has fundamentally altered how the community relates to supernatural phenomena, creating a population that can no longer dismiss anomalous experiences as isolated incidents or individual hallucinations. The social dynamics of post-Weirdmageddon Gravity Falls reflect adaptations to living in an environment where the residents understand that their reality exists in a state of perpetual vulnerability to forces that operate beyond human comprehension or control. Community planning and individual decision-making now incorporate considerations about dimensional stability and supernatural threat assessment that would have been considered symptoms of mental illness before the crisis, but which now represent reasonable precautionary measures given the demonstrated fragility of the barriers that separate normal reality from cosmic chaos. The educational implications of Weirdmageddon present perhaps the most complex challenges for the town's future development. As parents and teachers struggle to prepare children for life in a world where conventional, scientific and social education provides inadequate preparation for the realities they may encounter as adults. The traditional curriculum that assumes a stable, predictable universe, governed by consistent physical laws, must be supplemented with knowledge and skills that address the practical and psychological challenges of living in a reality that has been permanently altered by contact with forces that transcend normal human experience. The economic consequences of Weirdmageddon continue to influence Gravity Falls' development as the community adapts to the opportunities and challenges created by their unique status as the only location on Earth that experienced direct exposure to interdimensional chaos and lived to tell about it. The tourism industry that had previously relied on fabricated mysteries and artificial supernatural attractions now faces the complex challenge of managing genuine interest from researchers, thrill seekers, and curiosity enthusiasts, while protecting both visitors and residents from the real dangers that continue to manifest in the area. The scientific community's response to Weirdmageddon has been characterized by a combination of intense interest and institutional resistance, as mainstream academic and government research organizations struggle to reconcile the documented evidence of the crisis with theoretical frameworks that cannot accommodate phenomena of such magnitude and implications. The cognitive dissonance created by irrefutable proof of interdimensional entities and reality-altering events has led to the emergence of new fields of study that operate at the intersection between conventional science and the expanded understanding of cosmic reality that the crisis revealed. The religious and philosophical implications of Weirdmageddon extend throughout global intellectual and spiritual communities as thinkers and believers grapple with the revelation that consciousness and reality are far more complex, interconnected than traditional worldviews had acknowledged. The demonstration that individual will and collective cooperation can influence fundamental cosmic forces challenges both materialist and spiritual interpretations of human significance and cosmic purpose, creating new frameworks for understanding the relationship between consciousness and the physical universe. The artistic and cultural responses to Weirdmageddon reflect humanity's broader effort to process and integrate experiences that transcend the normal boundaries of individual and collective consciousness. The creative works inspired by the crisis, ranging from academic analyses to popular entertainment, represent attempts to develop new languages and symbolic systems capable of expressing concepts and experiences that existing cultural frameworks were never designed to accommodate. The technological implications of the reality modifications that resulted from Weirdmageddon may not become apparent until scientific instruments and engineering systems reach levels of precision and sophistication that can detect and respond to the subtle alterations in physical constants and dimensional relationships that the crisis created. Future technological development may need to incorporate design principles that account for the modified cosmic environment in which post-Weirdmageddon humanity must operate, leading to innovations that blur the boundaries between conventional engineering and the kind of reality manipulation techniques that had previously been the exclusive domain of supernatural entities. The cosmic significance of Weirdmageddon ultimately transcends its immediate impact on Gravity Falls or even Earth, to encompass its role as a precedent-setting event in the broader story of how conscious civilizations throughout the precedent universe develop the capabilities necessary for defending their realities against forces that seek to dissolve the organized complexity upon which life and culture depend. The successful resolution of the crisis represents a milestone in cosmic evolution that may influence how similar challenges are addressed by other civilizations encountering comparable threats throughout the galaxy and beyond. The legacy of Weirdmageddon continues to unfold as the universe slowly adapts to the permanent changes that 3 days of interdimensional chaos created in the fundamental structure of reality itself, reminding all conscious beings that the cosmos they inhabit is far stranger, more dangerous, and more responsive to the power of coordinated consciousness than they had ever dared to imagine or fear. The question of what lies ahead for Gravity Falls and its inhabitants carries implications that extend far beyond the immediate concerns of a small town recovering from supernatural crisis, encompassing theories about genetic inheritance, cosmic cycles, and the fundamental relationship between consciousness and reality that suggest the events witnessed during that transformative summer represent not an ending, but rather a beginning of humanity's expanded role in the broader cosmic community that surrounds and interpenetrates our familiar, three-dimensional existence. The next generation theory proposes that the children born to families with documented exposure to Gravity Falls supernatural phenomena may inherit capabilities that transcend normal human parameters, manifesting abilities that blur the boundaries between natural human potential and the kind of reality manipulation techniques that had previously been associated exclusively with otherworldly entities. The genetic modifications that may have been induced by prolonged exposure to dimensional instability, electromagnetic anomalies, and consciousness-altering fields could express themselves in ways that fundamentally alter how these individuals interact with the physical world and perceive the layers of reality that exist beyond normal sensory awareness. The theoretical framework for supernatural inheritance draws upon emerging understanding of epigenetic mechanisms that can transmit acquired characteristics across generations, suggesting that the intense supernatural experiences encountered by Gravity Falls residents may have triggered genetic modifications that will be passed on to their descendants in ways that conventional genetics cannot predict or explain. The children of families who lived through Weirdmageddon, witnessed dimensional breaches, or maintained prolonged contact with supernatural entities may develop enhanced intuition, improved pattern recognition capabilities, increased sensitivity to electromagnetic fields, or even limited abilities to perceive or influence phenomena that exist at the intersection between physical and metaphysical reality. The early manifestations of these inherited capabilities may initially appear as subtle variations in normal childhood development patterns, with affected children displaying unusual creativity, exceptional problem-solving skills, or seemingly impossible, intuitive leaps that allow them to understand complex concepts or situations without conventional learning experiences. Parents and teachers may notice that these children seem to know things they should not know, demonstrate awareness of events occurring at distances beyond normal sensory range, or display emotional responses to situations they have not directly experienced, but which correspond to supernatural phenomena occurring in their local environment. As these children mature, their inherited supernatural sensitivities may develop into more pronounced abilities that require careful guidance and management to prevent psychological trauma or social isolation. The challenge facing families and educational institutions will be developing approaches to nurturing these emerging capabilities while maintaining the children's connection to normal human society and helping them understand their role as bridges between conventional reality and the expanded, cosmic awareness that their genetic heritage has made accessible to them. The theory that Gravity Falls' influence spreads through genetics extends beyond simple inheritance of supernatural sensitivity to encompass the possibility that prolonged exposure to the town's anomalous conditions creates permanent modifications in human DNA that transform affected individuals into a new subspecies, capable of functioning as natural interfaces between different dimensional planes. This genetic evolution may represent an accelerated version of natural selection processes that would normally require millennia to achieve significant changes in human capabilities, compressed into a single generation through exposure to cosmic forces that operate outside normal temporal constraints. The implications of this genetic transformation extend throughout the broader human population as individuals with Gravity Falls heritage relocate to other regions, potentially carrying their modified genetic characteristics into communities that have had no direct exposure to supernatural phenomena. The gradual dispersal of these genetic modifications throughout the general population could initiate a species-wide evolutionary shift that prepares humanity for increased interaction with the cosmic civilizations and interdimensional entities that the Gravity Falls crisis revealed to exist beyond the boundaries of normal awareness. The predictions about the town's future supernatural evolution suggest that Gravity Falls will continue to serve as a focal point for cosmic forces and interdimensional activity, but that the nature of these phenomena will change in response to the permanent alterations in local reality conditions that resulted from Weirdmageddon and the subsequent dimensional healing process. The supernatural encounters that future residents experience may be less chaotic and more purposeful than those documented in previous decades, reflecting the establishment of more stable communication channels between our reality and the consciousness networks that operate throughout the galactic community. The 17-year cicada emergence pattern that characterizes many biological cycles in the Gravity Falls region may provide clues about the timing and intensity of future supernatural events, suggesting that the cosmic forces affecting the area operate according to mathematical principles that govern both biological and interdimensional phenomena. The theory of cyclic supernatural events proposes that the town experiences periods of heightened dimensional activity that correspond to astronomical alignments, electromagnetic field fluctuations, and consciousness resonance patterns that operate according to predictable schedules, extending decades or centuries into the future. The significance of the 17-year pattern becomes apparent when examined in the context of theoretical physics models that describe how dimensional barriers fluctuate according to harmonic frequencies related to prime number, relationships, and cosmic radiation cycles. The mathematical elegance of 17 as a prime number creates resonance patterns that may correspond to fundamental frequencies in the dimensional boundary system, making periods separated by 17-year intervals particularly conducive to interdimensional communication and supernatural manifestation. The documentation of supernatural activity patterns throughout Gravity Falls' recorded history reveals that major supernatural crises tend to occur at intervals that correspond to multiples of the 17-year base cycle, with particularly intense events manifesting during periods when multiple cycles align to create reinforcing resonance effects. The Weirdmageddon crisis occurred during one such alignment period, suggesting that future supernatural events of comparable magnitude may be predictable based on mathematical analysis of cosmic cycle convergence patterns. The next major supernatural event predicted by this cyclical model would likely occur during the late 2020s or early 2030s, when the next major cycle alignment is calculated to produce dimensional conditions similar to those that enabled Bill Cipher's initial breach of reality barriers. However, the permanent changes to local dimensional stability that resulted from Weirdmageddon may alter how future cycle peaks manifest, potentially creating opportunities for more controlled and beneficial interactions with interdimensional entities rather than the chaotic crisis that characterized the previous major event. The tourism paradox that affects Gravity Falls represents one of the most complex challenges facing the town's future development, as increased public awareness of its supernatural characteristics creates both opportunities and threats that could fundamentally alter the delicate balance between human society and the cosmic forces that continue to influence the area. The theory of how increased attention affects supernatural phenomena suggests that consciousness itself plays an active role in determining what kinds of supernatural events occur and how intense those manifestations become. The relationship between belief, attention, and reality alteration appears to operate according to principles that combine quantum mechanical observer effects with consciousness field dynamics that theoretical physicists are only beginning to understand. The increased focus that tourism brings to Gravity Falls may inadvertently amplify the supernatural phenomena that visitors come to experience, creating feedback loops that could either enhance the town's role as a dimensional interface or destabilize the carefully maintained equilibrium that prevents supernatural activity from overwhelming normal human society. The impact of collective human consciousness on supernatural manifestation suggests that the beliefs, expectations, and emotional states of large groups of people can influence the probability and intensity of paranormal phenomena in ways that transcend normal cause and effect relationships. The thousands of tourists who visit Gravity Falls each year, many of whom arrive with preconceived notions about what they hope to experience, may collectively create psychic pressure that encourages certain types of supernatural events while suppressing others. The theory that belief and attention alter reality in Gravity Falls finds support in statistical analysis of supernatural encounter reports, which show significant correlations between the intensity of visitor expectations and the dramatic nature of phenomena that subsequently manifest in areas frequented by tourists. Locations that receive the most attention from visitors seeking supernatural experiences tend to produce the most spectacular and well-documented paranormal events, while areas that remain relatively unknown continue to exhibit subtle but persistent supernatural characteristics that rarely attract widespread notice. The town's self-protective mechanisms against discovery appear to operate through a combination of conscious human intervention and unconscious reality manipulation processes that deflect excessive outside attention while maintaining the essential secrecy that protects both human residents and supernatural entities from the disruptive effects of mainstream publicity. These protective systems may have evolved as natural responses to the challenges posed by living in an environment where supernatural phenomena represent both opportunities and dangers that require careful management to prevent catastrophic consequences. The unresolved mysteries that continue to perplex researchers and residents include phenomena and entities that were documented during the most intensive period of supernatural activity, but which have never been adequately explained or categorized according to existing theoretical frameworks. The true identity of certain background characters who appeared throughout the town's history, displaying knowledge and capabilities that exceeded what their apparent roles and backgrounds should have made possible, suggests the presence of long-term observers or guardians whose true nature and purpose remain hidden from conventional investigation. The unexplained phenomena that were never fully addressed during the resolution of major supernatural crises include recurring incidents that seem to operate according to rules and patterns, completely independent of the dimensional instability and interdimensional entity contact that characterized the most dramatic events. These persistent mysteries may represent entirely separate categories of supernatural phenomenon that originate from sources unrelated to the Bill Cipher crisis, suggesting that Gravity Falls serves as a convergence point for multiple types of cosmic force and interdimensional influence. The theories about connections to other fictional supernatural locations propose that Gravity Falls may be part of a network of anomalous sites that exist throughout the world, each serving as an interface between normal reality and different aspects of the broader cosmic community that surrounds and interpenetrates our familiar three-dimensional existence. The mathematical and thematic similarities between Gravity Falls phenomena and supernatural events reported from other locations suggest the possibility of coordinated activity by entities or forces that operate on scales encompassing entire planetary or stellar systems. The evidence for such connections includes recurring symbolic patterns, similar technological artifacts, and comparable psychological effects that appear in supernatural investigations conducted in geographically separated regions that have no known historical connections to each other. The consistency of these patterns across different cultures and time periods implies the operation of forces that transcend individual regional phenomena to encompass global or cosmic influence networks that have been shaping human development and awareness for far longer than conventional history acknowledges. The long-term implications of Gravity Falls' role as a dimensional interface extend beyond its immediate function as a tourist destination or research site to encompass its potential significance as humanity's primary training ground for learning to navigate the complex relationships with cosmic civilizations and interdimensional entities that may become increasingly important as the species develops more advanced technological and consciousness-based capabilities. The skills and knowledge that individuals acquire through exposure to Gravity Falls' supernatural phenomena may prove essential for humanity's ability to participate in galactic civilizations that operate according to principles combining advanced technology with consciousness, manipulation techniques that transcend current scientific understanding. The town's residents, particularly those who have maintained prolonged contact with supernatural entities while preserving their essential human characteristics, may serve as ambassadors or interpreters who can facilitate communication between human society and the broader cosmic community. The educational value of Gravity Falls' supernatural phenomena extends beyond simple exposure to extraordinary events to encompass practical training in psychological resilience, creative problem-solving, and collaborative consciousness techniques that may represent essential survival skills for a species transitioning from planetary to cosmic awareness. The challenges that residents face in maintaining psychological stability while processing experiences that transcend normal reality parameters provide valuable preparation for the cognitive demands that future humanity may encounter as it develops more sophisticated relationships with the intelligences and forces that operate throughout the galaxy. The preservation of Gravity Falls' unique characteristics, while managing the pressures created by increased outside attention, represents a complex balancing act that requires careful coordination between local residents, government agencies, academic institutions, and the supernatural entities themselves. The development of sustainable approaches to tourism and research that protect both human visitors and otherworldly inhabitants while maintaining the essential conditions that make interdimensional contact possible will require innovative solutions that combine practical management techniques with theoretical understanding of consciousness, dynamics, and dimensional physics. The future of Gravity Falls ultimately depends on humanity's ability to develop wisdom and maturity, commensurate with the extraordinary opportunities and responsibilities that its role as a dimensional interface represents. The town's continued function as a bridge between normal human reality and the broader cosmic community requires residents and visitors who can approach supernatural phenomena with the combination of curiosity, respect, and caution that such encounters demand. The cosmic significance of Gravity Falls' ongoing evolution may ultimately transcend its immediate importance to human society to encompass its role as a testing ground and demonstration site where different forms of consciousness can experiment with collaborative approaches to managing the base, complex interactions between multiple levels of reality. The lessons learned through humanity's experience with supernatural phenomena in this small Oregon town may contribute to the development of protocols and principles that can be applied throughout the galaxy as conscious civilizations work together to maintain the stability and creativity of the cosmic community that encompasses all forms of existence across multiple dimensions and scales of being. The metafictional dimensions of Gravity Falls extend far beyond the conventional boundaries that typically separate fictional narratives from the reality inhabited by their creators and audiences, encompassing theoretical frameworks that suggest the show's creator, Alex Hirsch, embedded within the story itself layers of meaning and mystery that blur the distinction between artistic creation and documentary revelation of genuinely anomalous phenomena that exist independently of any fictional framework. The creator's hidden messages theory proposes that Hirsch's approach to developing the Gravity Falls narrative involved far more than conventional storytelling techniques, incorporating research methodologies and information sources that provided him with access to knowledge about supernatural phenomena that parallels or even exceeds the fictional discoveries made by the characters within his created universe. The consistency and sophistication of the supernatural concepts presented throughout the series suggest familiarity with theoretical frameworks and experiential knowledge that extends beyond what could be acquired through purely imaginative speculation or conventional research into folklore and mythology. The intentional mysteries that Hirsch left embedded within the show's narrative structure, visual symbolism, and background details reveal patterns of encoding that mirror techniques used by researchers and organizations that deal with genuinely classified or sensitive information, requiring protection from casual discovery while remaining accessible to individuals who possess the knowledge and analytical capabilities necessary for proper interpretation. The complexity and internal consistency of these hidden elements suggest preparation and planning that would have required resources and expertise extending beyond what individual creative professionals typically have available for developing fictional entertainment properties. The analysis of biographical elements that appear throughout the Gravity Falls narrative reveals remarkable correspondences between fictional events and locations within the show and documented anomalous phenomena that have been reported from regions of the Pacific Northwest, where Hirsch spent portions of his childhood and adolescence. The theory that real-world events influence the show's supernatural elements gains credence from examination of his family background, educational experiences, and early career development, which show patterns of exposure to information and perspectives that would have provided unusual insight into the kinds of phenomena that the show presents as fictional constructs. The connections between Hirsch's personal history and the specific supernatural concepts that appear throughout Gravity Falls extend beyond simple regional folklore or cultural influences to encompass detailed knowledge of theoretical physics, consciousness research, and interdimensional dynamics that suggests either extensive self-directed study in highly specialized academic fields or access to information sources that operate outside normal educational and professional channels. The precision with which the show presents complex concepts related to dimensional travel, memory manipulation, and reality alteration implies familiarity with research and theoretical work that remains largely unknown to mainstream academic and scientific communities. The timing of the show's development and release coincided with periods of documented increases in supernatural activity throughout regions of the American Pacific Northwest that correspond closely with the fictional location of Gravity Falls itself, suggesting either remarkable coincidence or deliberate coordination between creative production schedules and the manifestation patterns of genuine paranormal phenomena. The correlation between real-world supernatural incidents and fictional plot developments creates temporal patterns that exceed what statistical analysis would predict for random relationships between independent events. The theory that real mysterious locations provided inspiration for fictional Gravity Falls finds support in geographical analysis of the Pacific Northwest region, which reveals numerous sites that exhibit characteristics matching those presented in the show's depiction of supernatural hotspots and dimensional instability zones. The correspondence between fictional and actual topographical features, geological formations, and electromagnetic anomaly patterns suggests either extensive research into genuine anomalous locations or direct personal experience with sites that exhibit the kinds of phenomena that the show presents as entertainment. The alternate reality game elements that accompanied the show's broadcast represent one of the most intriguing aspects of the metafictional theory, as they created interactive experiences that extended the fictional universe into real-world activities and investigations that produced tangible results and discoveries for participants. The ARG components required participants to engage in actual research, decode real ciphers, and visit actual locations while following clues that bridged the gap between fictional narrative and genuine mystery-solving activities. The real-world clues embedded within the ARG framework demonstrated levels of complexity and coordination that exceeded what would normally be justified by the promotional requirements of a television entertainment property, suggesting that these activities served purposes beyond simple audience engagement to encompass actual information, distribution, and community building among individuals with interests and capabilities related to supernatural investigation and anomalous phenomena research. The significance of the ARG elements becomes apparent when examining the kinds of knowledge and skills that successful participation required, which included capabilities in cryptography, research methodology, collaborative problem-solving, and pattern recognition that would be valuable for individuals engaged in genuine supernatural investigation or anomalous phenomena research. The ARG served as both entertainment and practical training program for developing the intellectual and social capabilities that effective supernatural research requires. The theory that Gravity Falls exists in multiple media formats extends beyond conventional transmedia storytelling to encompass the possibility that the fictional universe represents one layer of a multi-dimensional information system that includes corresponding phenomena and entities existing in parallel realities that intersect with our own at specific temporal and spatial coordinates. The consistency of supernatural concepts across different media presentations of the Gravity Falls universe suggests either remarkable attention to fictional detail or documentation of genuinely existing phenomena that maintain coherent characteristics independent of their representation in various entertainment formats. The connections between the show and real mysterious locations extend throughout regions of North America that exhibit geological, electromagnetic, and historical characteristics similar to those presented in the fictional version of Gravity Falls, creating a network of potentially related sites that may serve similar functions as interfaces between normal reality and the broader cosmic community that the show's narrative suggests exists beyond conventional human awareness. The documentation of these real-world connections includes reports from visitors to potentially related locations who describe experiences that parallel fictional events from the show with remarkable precision, suggesting either the influence of fictional expectations on perception and memory, or the existence of genuine phenomena that inspired both real experiences and fictional representation. The consistency of these reports across different geographical locations and time periods implies systematic patterns that transcend individual psychological responses to fictional entertainment. The influence that Gravity Falls has exerted on popular culture extends far beyond its immediate impact as an entertainment property to encompass fundamental changes in how supernatural themes are approached and presented throughout contemporary fiction, creating new standards for internal consistency, theoretical sophistication, and emotional authenticity that have influenced entire genres of creative work, dealing with paranormal and interdimensional subject matter. The show's impact on supernatural storytelling techniques can be traced through subsequent creative works that demonstrate increased attention to the psychological realism of characters encountering genuinely anomalous phenomena, more sophisticated integration of actual scientific theories with fictional supernatural elements, and greater emphasis on the social and cultural implications of widespread supernatural activity, rather than focusing exclusively on individual heroic narratives or simple good versus evil conflicts. The theoretical frameworks that Gravity Falls introduced or popularized within mainstream entertainment have influenced how both creators and audiences approach questions about the nature of reality, consciousness, and the relationship between scientific understanding and mystical experience. The show's presentation of supernatural phenomena as subjects worthy of serious intellectual investigation, rather than mere sources of excitement or horror, has contributed to broader cultural shifts in how anomalous experiences are interpreted and discussed. The show's role in modern mythology creation becomes apparent through analysis of how its concepts and imagery have been adopted and adapted by communities engaged in actual supernatural research and anomalous phenomena investigation. The symbolic systems, theoretical frameworks, and practical approaches to supernatural problem-solving that appear throughout the show have provided vocabulary and conceptual tools that real researchers have found useful for organizing and communicating their own experiences and discoveries. The development of fan communities that extend beyond conventional entertainment appreciation to encompass genuine research activities and investigation of anomalous phenomena suggests that the show has served as a catalyst for organizing and focusing interests and capabilities that existed independently within the general population but lacked effective coordination and direction. These communities have developed methodologies and collaborative approaches that combine fictional inspiration with practical investigation techniques. The educational impact of Gravity Falls extends beyond entertainment to encompass its function as an accessible introduction to complex concepts from theoretical physics, psychology, and consciousness research that would otherwise remain confined to specialized academic and professional contexts. The show's presentation of advanced theoretical material in narrative formats that general audiences can understand and appreciate has contributed to broader public awareness of scientific and philosophical questions that have significant implications for understanding human potential and cosmic relationships. The long-term cultural significance of Gravity Falls may ultimately reside in its demonstration that entertainment media can serve as effective vehicles for transmitting sophisticated knowledge and promoting intellectual curiosity about subjects that conventional educational institutions have both been reluctant to address directly. The show's success in generating sustained interest in anomalous phenomena, consciousness research, and interdimensional theory among young audiences suggests approaches to education and cultural development that could prove valuable for preparing future generations to navigate increasingly complex relationships between human society, the broader cosmic community. The legacy of Gravity Falls within contemporary culture extends beyond its immediate influence on entertainment and education to encompass its potential role as a bridge between scientific materialism and mystical spirituality, offering theoretical frameworks that can accommodate both empirical investigation and transcendent experience without requiring abandonment of either rigorous intellectual standards or openness to phenomena that exceed conventional understanding. The synthesis of rational investigation with acceptance of genuinely mysterious phenomena that characterizes the show's approach to supernatural subject matter provides a model for cultural development that could prove essential as humanity encounters increasingly sophisticated evidence for the existence of consciousness and reality layers that transcend current scientific paradigms. The show's demonstration that mystery and knowledge can coexist productively rather than representing competing approaches to understanding reality offers hope for cultural evolution that preserves both scientific rigor and spiritual wonder. The international impact of Gravity Falls reveals patterns of cultural resonance that transcend regional folklore and mythology to touch upon universal aspects of human consciousness and cosmic relationship that appear to be recognized and valued by diverse populations regardless of their specific cultural backgrounds or educational experiences. The show's ability to generate enthusiasm and engagement across different linguistic and cultural contexts suggests that its core concepts address fundamental human needs and interests that operate independently of particular social and historical circumstances. The global community that has developed around Gravity Falls-inspired research and investigation activities demonstrates humanity's capacity for collaborative intellectual adventure and shared exploration of questions that exceed what any individual or single cultural tradition could address independently. The international networks that have formed around investigation of anomalous phenomena and theoretical speculation about consciousness and reality represent new forms of cultural organization that may prove essential for addressing the paper challenges and opportunities that increased cosmic awareness will bring to human civilization. The ultimate significance of Gravity Falls as a cultural phenomenon may lie in its demonstration that fiction and reality, entertainment and education, scientific investigation, and mystical exploration can be integrated into coherent approaches to understanding existence that honor both human curiosity and cosmic mystery. The show's legacy suggests possibilities for cultural development that could prepare humanity for its expanding role in galactic civilization, while preserving the essential human characteristics of wonder, courage, and collaborative problem-solving that have enabled the species to survive and flourish throughout its evolutionary history. The ongoing influence of Gravity Falls continues to manifest through new creative works, research initiatives, and cultural movements that draw inspiration from its integration of rational investigation with acceptance of genuine mystery, suggesting that its impact will extend far beyond its original broadcast period to influence how future generations approach questions about consciousness, reality, and humanity's place in the broader cosmic community that surrounds and interpenetrates our familiar three-dimensional existence. And so we reach the end of our journey through the theoretical landscape of Gravity Falls, though like the town itself, the mysteries never truly end. We have explored theories that span from the dawn of time to the far future, from the smallest personal mysteries to cosmic implications that stretch across multiple realities. In this strange little town where the impossible becomes everyday and the everyday becomes impossible, every theory is both a key and a door, every answer the beginning of 3 new questions. The ancient peoples who first recognized the sacred and dangerous nature of this dimensional confluence point understood something that modern civilization has spent centuries trying to rationalize away: that reality is far more fluid and responsive to consciousness than our everyday experience suggests. Their wisdom, encoded in rituals and symbols that survived the cultural disruption of colonization, provided the foundation upon which all subsequent understanding of Gravity Falls' supernatural characteristics would build. The founding of the town itself represents not merely the establishment of another frontier settlement, but the creation of a unique experiment in human supernatural cooperation that has continued to evolve and develop over the course of nearly 2 centuries. Nathaniel Northwest's encounters with otherworldly entities established patterns of interaction and mutual benefit that would shape the community's development in ways that transcended normal, historical, and economic forces. The portal conspiracy that brought Stanford Pines to Gravity Falls and ultimately led to the crisis of Weirdmageddon reveals the operation of cosmic forces that had been working across multiple generations to create the conditions necessary for humanity's introduction to the broader galactic community of consciousness that exists beyond the boundaries of normal 3-dimensional awareness. Bill Cipher's manipulation of historical events and individual psychology demonstrates the sophistication and patience of intelligences that operate according to timescales measured in centuries rather than human lifetimes. The Pines family connection to supernatural phenomena extends far beyond coincidence or individual sensitivity to encompass genetic and psychological characteristics that may represent an evolutionary adaptation to living in an environment where multiple levels of reality intersect and interact on a regular basis. The special properties of twin consciousness, particularly as demonstrated by Dipper and Mabel during their summer adventure, reveal capabilities that may prove essential for humanity's future role as a bridge between different forms of existence. The Society of the Blind Eye's systematic manipulation of collective memory created a community that existed in a state of perpetual uncertainty about the reliability of personal experience and shared cultural memory, demonstrating the psychological and social consequences of living in an environment where reality itself could not be trusted as a stable foundation for individual identity and community development. Weirdmageddon represented the culmination of cosmic forces that had been building toward crisis for decades or possibly centuries, creating a situation where the fundamental structure of reality itself was threatened by the collision between different forms of consciousness and existence. The successful resolution of this crisis required not only individual heroism, but the activation of protective principles that operate at scales encompassing entire galactic clusters and multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. The ongoing mysteries and future implications of Gravity Falls' supernatural characteristics suggest that the town will continue to serve as a focal point for cosmic forces and interdimensional activity, but that the nature of these phenomena will evolve in response to humanity's growing awareness and capability for managing complex relationships with otherworldly entities and forces that transcend normal human experience. The metafictional aspects of Gravity Falls, as both entertainment property and potential documentary revelation of genuine anomalous phenomena, demonstrate the complex relationships between artistic creation, cultural education, and the transmission of knowledge that operates outside conventional academic and scientific channels. The show's influence on popular culture and consciousness research suggests that fiction and reality may be more interconnected than traditional worldviews acknowledge. As you drift towards sleep, let your mind wander through those pine-covered hills where cryptids roam freely and ancient secrets whisper in the wind. Dream of journals filled with impossible knowledge, of twins discovering their cosmic significance, of a universe where weirdness and wonder are just around every corner. Remember that in Gravity Falls, as in dreams, the only limit to what's possible is the boundary of imagination itself. The mysteries continue, the theories evolve, and somewhere in the forests of Oregon, the impossible waits patiently for the next curious soul brave enough to seek it out. The town stands as a testament to the power of human curiosity and courage when faced with forces that transcend understanding, while the cosmic community that surrounds us watches with interest and hope as our species slowly develops the wisdom and maturity necessary for participation in the broader conversation of consciousness that spans galaxies, dimensions. Rest well and remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Buy gold and always trust in the power of mystery to make life infinitely more interesting. The theories we have explored tonight represent not final answers but invitations to deeper questions, not conclusions, but beginnings of investigations that may continue for generations as humanity learns to navigate its expanding role in the cosmic community. Sweet dreams, mystery seekers, and may your rest be filled with the gentle whisper of pine needles and the distant call of anomalies yet to be discovered.